Hi, and welcome to Veterans Creed Veteran Services. First night, we're going live. If you have any questions you'd like to have answered, please put those in the chat. Let's go ahead and start off with maybe putting in the chat where you're from, what branch of service you served in, and what years you served. And then we will get started. Just pop in a hello if you're in the room, if you're here. All right. While we're waiting for people to pop in the room, let's go ahead and talk about. Let me introduce myself first. So, my name is Darrell. I go by Coach. A little bit of my history. I served in the Marine Corps during the first Gulf War. I served with Second Land Battalion, um, and went into Saudi Arabia. Was stationed in Saudi Arabia. After the Marine Corps, though, I got out with a disability. So after the Marine Corps, I needed to do something different. So, like many veterans do, I went into a different field. Obviously, there's not much call for ground-air missiles in uh, in civilian life. So I went into education. I became a teacher. I started off as an elementary ed teacher, and gradually I became a high school teacher. And I was also a football coach, did a lot of coaching of football and track and soccer and hockey, thus the name coach. After about 16 years of doing that, I decided that I wanted to go to work for the VA. So that's exactly what I did. I accepted a job with the VA. I started off as a veteran service representative or a VSR. And then I became an RVSR after about 2 years. So I was a rating veteran service representative. All the time I was doing both of those positions, I was also a certified trainer for the VA, and they would send me out to the academy, and I would teach other people around the nation how to be rating specialists and how to be veteran service representatives, and all the applicable laws and things that went along with it. So I, over that period of time, I really became an expert with the 38 CFR Part 3 and 4, and I also became an expert with the M21-1 MR, which is the internal Bible for the VA essentially. After that, I did become part of the management team at the local regional office. Did that for a little while. After that, I decided to take my knowledge and my expertise, and I was a training specialist for an education consulting company that works with veterans as well. So I've got a lot of history, well over almost 20 years of experience working with veterans in this space. And I'd like to share some of my education with you guys tonight. So if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off until we get some questions in. Let's start off. We're going to talk about how important it is to have an intent to file on record. So an intent to file is probably in the very beginning. It's one of the most important papers that you can fill out and you can send in. It's a 21-0966, and the reason for that documentation, basically, you're preserving your date for your claim. You don't necessarily have to claim anything when you submit that form, but it is a placeholder for your claim for any potential back pay. I'm not really going to go into the back pay and what goes into an ITF and what the purpose of the ITF is, other than it's a placeholder. Okay. So with the ITF, you're going to want to have an intent to file open all the time until you become 100% permanent and total. Once you become 100% permanent and total, you no longer need to keep one on record. But if you're not 100% permanent and total, getting that first one in is very important. That is notifying the VA that you're going to send in a claim within the next year. You're going to apply for some kind of benefit through the VA in the next year. And it's important because if you don't submit that, you're leaving money on the table essentially. You're not getting paid when you should be getting paid. So submit that ITF and you can submit your 526EZ later on, your claim submission later on. Okay. If you have any questions about that, please reach out. I have no problems answering it. If you can see down along the bottom of the screen, it says veteranscreed.com. please visit the website if you're interested in learning more on what we offer. Also, up in the corner, there is a QR code. If you scan that QR code with your phone, that will bring you to veteranscreed.com as well. Okay. All right. All right. Let's talk about the stages. The stages of when you go into va.gov, let's talk about the stages that you'll see in there and what they actually mean. So once you submit a claim, it's when you submit a claim, your claim will go to Janesville, Wisconsin. Janesville, Wisconsin will take that claim and they will upload it into the National Work Queue, the NWQ for the VA. Once they upload it into the National Work Queue, it will actually notify that they have received a claim. So va.gov will be notified that a claim was received. And once that claim is received and accepted, then when you go into va.gov, it will show you claim received. All right. It'll sit there. Really, it all depends on the claim, but they can sit there for a few days in that status. But once they get sent to a VSR or a veteran service representative, then they'll move it over into the initial review. And what happens in that stage? In the initial review stage, a veteran service representative will apply 38 CFR 3.159 duty to assist, and they will go through all the records that were submitted along with the claim. So any medical evidence you might have submitted, any lay statements you might have submitted, the actual claim itself, whether it's on a 526 EZ for an initial claim, if it's on an 0995 for a supplemental claim, or an 0996 for an HLR, it will register that, and then the ratings or the VSR will start working with it. If there's any information at all, the VSR is required to go out and grab that information as part of, like I said before, 3.159. They're required to go out and they're required to grab that information from whatever source they can get it from. Your service treatment records, they will get those. Your DD-214, they will grab that. Any kind of medical evidence that you may have submitted or shown on your 526 EZ documentation, they will actually reach out with a 4142 and they will ask you for that information as well. They will also, once you turn in that 4142, they are required to go after those private treatment records. So if you have private treatment records and you can't get a hold of them yourself, go ahead and file that 4142 with the VA. They will go out and they will ask for those medical records for you. In all honesty, it's a lot better to get it for yourself and submit it with your record up front. That way it takes less time. A 4142, by the time it gets to the veteran and then it gets to the whatever doctor you were seeing, and then it gets back to the VA, it can really chew up some time. So make sure that if you have private treatment records that you want to have considered as part of your claim, that you get those records before time and hand them in. Now, I did talk about the service treatment records. Do not wait until you have your service treatment records to file a claim. Okay, do not wait for those records. If you know you were seen on active duty service for a condition, then go ahead and file and get that claim filed without your service treatment records. The VA will go after those. However, if you've been out of service for a while, and you know that you've been seen for something in your service treatment records, make sure that you're showing continuity of care, that you have been going to the VA consistently for that condition. And I'll give you an example. An example would be a knee condition. You had a knee condition while you were in service. You were seen for it several times while you were in service. You were discharged, and now you haven't been to the doctor for that knee condition since then. It's 10 years since you've been out of service. The VA could technically come back and say, well, it could be related to anything that happened in the past 10 years. So if you have a knee condition while you're in service and you have a knee condition now, get that continuity of care. Okay, that's really going to help out your claim a whole lot. Anyway, so once they get all of your medical evidence, once they get everything together, typically the VSR will request a C&P exam or a compensation and pension exam for you from the VA. This doesn't happen in every case. Keep in mind they have to have the evidence in order to request the examination. So if you submit a claim that, here's another example. When I was a rating specialist, I had veterans who would submit claims for Agent Orange exposure, and they would claim diabetes secondary to Agent Orange exposure, but they were never exposed to Agent Orange. They were never in Vietnam. They served in the 80s. So typically in those situations, the VA would not schedule them an examination. Okay, so make sure that you're submitting evidence to show that you have what you have. Okay, and that way the VA, the more medical evidence you submit, the greater your chances are for getting an examination. Okay. Um, Once all of the medical evidence, once everything's together, the VSR has everything together, they've got the results back from the examination, then they will send that over to an RVSR. When they do that, um, it'll move from evidence gathering to review and decision. All right. The rating specialist will take a look at everything that the RV or that the VSR has submitted, and they will look it all over. Now, keep in mind, if the VSR missed anything, then they will go back to the VSR and request that documentation, or they'll send it back. So it's really common for a claim to move back and forth in this stage, the evidence gathering, review, and decision. Very common for that to happen. Okay. Don't get discouraged if it does happen. It's just the VA going after extra evidence to help substantiate and support your claim. All right. Once the RVSR has everything they need and they're able to make a decision on it, they will go ahead and they will make the decision. How they do that is they review medical evidence, they review the C&P examination, they apply law, they use 38 CFR Part 4, and they make a legal decision based on the evidence that you've submitted, and the evidence that they gathered from the C&P examination to give either a compensable or a non-compensable evaluation for your condition. Okay. Once that's all done, then they will complete it. It goes from being with an RVSR, it'll go to the post-development team, where they will have an authorizer review it. Once the authorizers reviewed it, they signed off on everything, make sure the rater crossed all their T's and dotted all their I's. Then they will go ahead and make that decision letter, and that's the decision letter that eventually gets sent out to you, the veteran. Okay. If you need any elaboration on that, or you have any questions on that, go ahead and throw it in the chat. I'd be more than happy to answer those for you. Yeah. All right. Next thing I want to talk about a little bit. Let's talk about the new. Let's talk about President Trump's message about National Guard and National Guard being eligible for benefits. In reality, the National Guard has, if they were activated for any reason at all, once they get that DD 214, they are considered active duty. So once they have that active duty DD 214, they are eligible for any kind of injury, illness that they had incurred while they were on that active duty status. Outside of that, it's really up to the individual unit. Typically, you would have to have a line of duty determination in order to get any kind of benefits like active duty for training and active duty for training. So it really didn't change a whole lot for National Guardsmen. What it did is it offered the opportunity for people who are at home and on orders. And I'll give you an example: Katrina, the current border situation, having to go to Minnesota situation, things like that, where it's really going to step up, and that's really what's going to benefit the National Guard. As many of you guys know, National Guard is activated for quite a few things, either domestic or foreign. So it just kind of it opens that up a little bit more for the more domestic events that happen, and it gives National Guard the ability to address any kind of needs that they have while they were on active duty or while they were activated for any kind of event. Okay, so and I know in a lot of National Guard, my brother served in the National Guard. National Guard is typically a state entity. employed by the state, but in recent years they have been activated quite a bit. I live in Iowa, and Iowa National Guard has probably been activated just as much, if not more, than other states, and sent to Iraq and Afghanistan, and just anywhere where they're really needed. Okay. Any questions on National Guard? Just reach out. I'm here. If you guys have any questions at all, please drop them in the chat. I know this is just me doing a lot of talking. I'd really love to answer some questions. See if you can stump me. See what you can do. I do know that there was a question in one of the Facebook feeds that a veteran had asked the question, said I probably won't talk about it, but they talked about, or they asked about, and I'm just going to paraphrase here. They asked about if I was going to talk about why some raiders drag their feet, or they don't go the extra mile, or they don't help out finding information. But I'm going to address that. Okay, being a rating specialist and being an educator of rating specialists. We're all human. We're all human. They do have quality and production standards that are set in play. And unfortunately, with the quality standard, usually the better quality, until they get rolling in it, the better quality kind of slows down the production. So they've got to find a balance. So a lot of times when you have those errors that are being made, or it seems like they're not working your claim property, or it seems like they're denying just to deny, it's usually from a younger, less experienced rating specialist who is just learning the ropes. And typically those get caught, or they go through a quality check, and that quality check is usually where those kind of things are caught. But on that note, that is also why in 2019 the VA came up with or actually adapted the Appeals Management Act. Okay. And what that did was that took everything. Typically, if you had to appeal a claim, that appeal would last, it could go anywhere from 5 to 8 years before you got to see a judge, or before it was determined. And the Appeals Modernization Act actually changed that. All right. They actually offered up 2 different lanes of appeals that you could go through before you actually had to go to a board appeal. So they offered up the supplemental claim route, and a supplemental claim route is typically for a claim that was previously denied. And it tells you in your decision letter what you need to provide for them in order to reopen that claim. And typically with a supplemental claim, you're going to want to have new and relevant information. With new and relevant information, then the VA can take another look at whatever was denied. All right. With the HLR route is a higher level review. And the way that one works, if you submitted a claim, and I'll give you a couple scenarios. So if you submitted a claim and the claim came back and you were underrated for that claim, okay, let's take mental health. You submitted medical evidence showing that your mental health was more severe than the VA rated it. All right. So you disagreed with the decision that the rating specialist made. And I'm just going to use numbers here. Let's say they came back at a 30%, but your medical evidence you feel showed that it should have been a higher percentage. You can apply, it's all based in law. You can apply law, and you can submit an HLR to have somebody with more experience take a look at that claim. Okay. With that, they can make a new decision on your claim, but they can't take away the previous decision unless they find a Q, a clear and unmistakable error. So if you're at 30% and you submit an HLR, you can't submit any new medical evidence. It's based on everything that's already in the file, but you submit an HLR and you want the higher level reviewer to take a look at the medical evidence that you've already submitted, they can do that. They can't drop you from the 30%. All they can do is potentially give you more or confirm and continue the 30%, which is a pretty good deal. The second time you can do an HLR is if a claim was denied. If your claim was denied, but you felt like there was enough medical evidence to support your claim, you can file an HLR to have somebody with more experience take a look at that claim. Okay. With an HLR, you're also afforded the opportunity to do what's called an informal conference. With an informal conference, you have the ability to speak to the person who will be rating your claim. So if you felt like there was evidence that you submitted in your claim that wasn't considered as part of your claim, you do get the opportunity to speak to that rating specialist who'll be rating it and point out that medical evidence that was already submitted in support of your claim. So it's a win-win for the veteran. And these don't usually take very long. These move pretty quickly, so you're not waiting. You're not waiting that 3 to 8 years or whatever it is for a legacy appeal to go through. Very beneficial. Very beneficial. Okay. So you can, when you're filling out your HLR, you can do it through va.gov. You just go into va.gov and it'll give you the opportunity to fill out an 0995. You disagree with a previous decision or you disagree with a decision on a previous claim, select whatever condition it is that you're disagreeing with, and you can request it right there. You can request an informal conference from the rating specialist. Now, with an informal conference, typically you can put down a time when they will call you. They try to adhere to that, but sometimes they don't. So if you are one that normally avoids answering your phone or screens your phone calls or has a spam blocker turned on, unfortunately, you might want to turn it off for that period of time until you hear from the rating specialist. They will typically make 2 attempts to call you. And if they don't get a hold of you, they will go ahead and decide your claim without talking to you. All right. So if that informal conference if it's part of what you're relying on for your claim, make sure you're answering that phone call from the VA. Okay. If you have any questions about HLR supplemental claims, I'll be more than happy to answer those as well. Just throw those in the chat. I'm here for you guys. Okay. This is knowledge I want to share with all you veterans out there. Help you along the way and educate you as far as your claim goes. Now, we talked about supplemental claims a little bit. Let's talk about supplemental claims a little bit more. All right. So if you were previously denied for a mental health claim, and the VA kind of goes back and forth on this one. It all depends on the regional office. But current guidance from the VA says that if you filed a claim for PTSD and PTSD was denied, and now you want to come back in and you want to file a claim for, let's say, major depressive disorder, realistically, that is considered a new claim, okay? Because you haven't filed for major depressive disorder before, you filed for PTSD, which is something new because in the past, mental health was mental health was mental health. It didn't matter what you applied for or what you had a diagnosis of. Once you submitted that claim, it was all considered mental health. That has really changed, and it has gone to more of a it's a new claim. So some regional offices will still kind of kick back on that a little bit, and they'll tell you that you filed it on the wrong form if you submitted it as a new claim, and they'll ask you to fill out the 0995 and submit it as a supplemental claim. But that's just all part of that expectation management, just making sure that you are understanding that they might kick it back, and if they do, don't worry, it's not gonna affect your effective date. Just fill it out on whichever form they tell you to fill it out on and resubmit it as a claim. Okay. Once again, I really want to hit you guys up and say if you have any questions at all, please reach out, veteranscreed.com down below. All right. And if you are more tech savvy, there's that QR code up there in the corner. Go ahead and tap on that, click into that, and that'll take you to veteranscreed.com also. If you want to sit down a time for a discovery call with me, by all means, both of those places will get you there, veteranscreed.com, and we can discuss whatever conditions you have going on, what you might have going on. I do plan on doing these probably bi-monthly right now. So if you are here, I appreciate you being here. If you're not here and you're seeing this later on, watch for our next one. I really want to do this, so we're fielding questions from viewers. But I'll do this also, and then if you guys have any questions, just hit me up on veteranscreed.com, or on any social media platform. We're on Facebook. We're in Facebook. Let me think of all the ones we're in. And this is all new to me too, because I don't like social media. I don't typically do social media. So Instagram is another one. So hit us up on Instagram, TikTok. There's some TikTok videos in there, LinkedIn, all over LinkedIn. So let me help you. I really, really, really enjoy working with veterans. It's a calling of mine. And like I said, if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate. Reach out. veteranscreed.com. I am Coach. I go by Coach. Call me Coach. And hit me up if you have any questions. Need any more information, I'm here.